Hello, Steve White, Trek Boy 89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, I just was watching the Decon Chamber podcast with Michelle Hurd, and I like Michelle Hurd as an actress. I appreciate everything she did during the strikes, and it was interesting to hear her talk about that. But I really hated the character of Raffi, and naturally, being a white male, people will automatically assume, oh, you're racist and you don't like women. It's nothing to do with that. It's the character and what she represented and took away from Star Trek, what her character took away from Star Trek for me. Now, I don't drink, I don't take drugs, I never have my whole life because I have addiction in my family. My father was an alcoholic and he was addicted to gambling, and it ruined my life. I have had moments where I've allowed myself to sort of think what would have happened if my dad had actually been present in my life, if he hadn't have had alcoholism, if he hadn't have been a gambler, if he hadn't have spent all our money regularly, and what that, all the opportunities I missed out on and things I could have had and the different life I could have had. And I hate that we have addiction in this world. It's partly due to poverty and our culture, and a lot of things are built and stacked up against people to make them addicted because it makes money for other people. And that's a whole issue on its own. But the thing I loved about Star Trek, one of the things I loved about Star Trek was there was no addiction in Star Trek. There was no drugs in Star Trek. On Earth, that's one of the things we'd cured, along with poverty and religion and war and, scarcity of, we lived in this post-scarcity universe where we had all the resources we had, so people didn't have any lacking in their life where they had to fill it with something or turn to something. Like, it was a better place, it was a better future, it was a world that I wanted to imagine, we could have one day, and that meant a lot to me. And to have a character like Raffi come into Star Trek who is an addict, and to imply that that is still a problem that we have in the 24th century, that there's still addicts, we still have drug addicts on Earth and in our society, just says to me, there's no hope. That's not something we're ever going to cure. That's just this cynical view of the human condition and humanity, saying, oh, we're always going to be messed up and it's never going to get better. Even if we improve the world and improve technology and move forward in time and exist in time and survive and go forward into space and explore and meet other aliens and other species and so forth, we're still going to be messed up and dysfunctional, and it's just a cynical view of humanity and the world, and I hate it. And that's what they brought into Star Trek with Star Trek Picard. I mean, with Discovery as a whole, but specifically in Picard and with that character. And I hate that character because they took that away from me. I had somewhere I could go where there was no addiction, and now I don't. And I really resent that on a personal level as a fan. It's one of the many things that they did. Once upon a time the Federation was fair and just and was equal, and now it's, against immigrants, and it's all these issues contemporary issues that they put into Star Trek, and instead of doing it through allegory with other species and showing as an example this is what we shouldn't do, they brought it into Starfleet and made it something that we now do, and says we still are going to have this problem in the 24th, 25th century, which again is a cynical view of humanity and society. And I hate it because Gene Roddenberry had this beautiful, optimistic view that we were strong and we were capable and we were going to build a better future that we're going to live in, and we're going to be so okay that we could actually go out into the world, into the universe, and preach to other people about how to sort themselves out. And that was beautiful. And what it comes down to is you have to have an imagination to share that vision. You have to have intelligence to share that vision. And there's a lot of small-minded, unintelligent people who just can't conceive of that vision that Gene had and that world that they created in Star Trek. So they have to bring it down to our level. They have to reduce it. They have to make it contemporary, and they have to have people with their problems so they can be like, oh, that person's just like me. People don't watch Star Trek. Real Star Trek fans, people who love Star Trek, who are passionate about it, who really wanted to maintain this universe, all the fictional books and blueprints and technical manuals and novels, was all about keeping that universe real, expanding it, living in it, because that was somewhere to escape to, somewhere better that you had hope for. That was something that they did. And now these other people, they don't do that. They just want to see themselves. They just want contemporary stuff because that's all they can imagine. That's as far as they can go. And they couldn't relate to Star Trek before, they didn't like Star Trek before because it was, they just couldn't conceive of the future that we would live in, that Gene had envisioned. And I really resent that they are destroying Star Trek, tearing it apart, tearing it down, reducing it to bringing it down to our level, to our issues, our societal issues and our contemporary issues, just so the mass audience who doesn't have the imagination to really appreciate something like Star Trek might watch it, and there's more of them than us. So instead of having people like us passionate about Star Trek and really wanting to invest in escaping this universe and future and spend a lot of money on merchandise to do it, they'd rather get rid of us and just have a few, the contemporary general audience come and just, casually watch it and maybe, buy something, instead of real fans who just live for Star Trek. But that's where we're at, and that's why I hate Raffi, why I hate the character. Nothing against Michelle Hurd, she's fabulous, but I really hate Raffi, and that's why.